Good morning, world.
Good morning, world. Well, here we are once again with another Cedric and Brian video, and our illustrious commander-in-chief, the main stutterer himself, the one who can't string together a sentence. I don't even know if he finished grade school, but he was granted the opportunity to give the commencement speech at Morehouse College in Atlanta, GA. Atlanta? Are you been to the Freaknik? You don't even know what the Freaknik is. Anyway, we're going to look at parts of his speech, dissect it for you, and see why this man today is still the most divisive, harmful man we have ever met. Stay tuned. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. Okay, before we get into it, Cedric told me what we're doing, so I had to grab some whiskey, and
you need a reason for that.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Oh man, I'm just following along. This will be all Cedric, but I'm sure I'll speak, right, Cedric?
Yeah, you haven't stopped yet. And I've said this right at the intro, but I'll say it again. Today, President Biden has got to be the most divisive, most racially motivated individual I've ever met. No matter where he is, no matter what he's talking about, he finds some way to intertwine race into the conversation and make it seem like Black people are still living under Jim Crow. But as you said famously, this is Jim Crow 2.0. So why would we say that?
Well, it's because
I don't know.
He's in the polls, Cedric, behind Trump, and he's losing support among the Black community, so he has to go pander at a Black SBCU. So
Incredible. Well, Brian and I looked at this video. It's about 28 minutes long. Can you imagine that, listening to President Biden speak for 28 minutes?
I can't believe he stayed on for 28 minutes.
I'm sure they injected him with something. The same thing they're going to inject him with before the debates, keep him awake. But we're going to break down parts of it and look at it.
Won't happen.
And let you see how divisive this man really is. I think the first segment starts at 9:50, Brian, with a 10-minute mark.
All right, I got it at 9:53. You ready?
Yep, let's listen to this.
The pandemic robbed you of so much. Some of you lost loved ones, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters.
Wait, I'm going to stop it there just for a second before it gets into that, because I hear this all the time. Because these are the kids that they couldn't graduate high school, and now 4 years later they can't. Some of them, like Columbia, they couldn't graduate college because they had to cancel graduation. But it wasn't the pandemic that stopped them from missing or caused them to miss out so much. They were 18-year-old kids at the time. They had almost zero chance of dying, yet it was the government that told them that they couldn't go to school. I just needed to bring that up.
Who aren't able to be here to celebrate with you today. You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder. Democracy you hear.
Was he murdered, or did he take a whole bunch of fentanyl and other drugs? I'm just asking.
Stop using facts. Right before Brian played that clip, there was something else he said right before that as he made the analogy about George Floyd being compared to Jesus Christ. Early on in his speech that we didn't play, he talked about something happened on Friday. It was Good Friday, and Jesus was put in the grave. But Saturday was so full of doubt and so full of wonder and like what's going to go on. And he said, I know 4 years ago, as some of your speakers have already mentioned, it felt like one of those Saturdays when the disciples were debating what do we do if Jesus is gone. He's making the comparison that George Floyd had the same effect on his community. Like, what do we do now? Now that the patron saint of fentanyl is gone, who is our leader? Who will lead us to the promised land? They made this idiot a martyr with the golden. How many funerals did he have? Like 6 or 7? I forgot.
The golden casket.
The golden caskets and monuments erected in his honor. It was crazy. But then he goes on to say,
when's his name going to go next to Martin Luther King over by Lincoln?
Oh, geez, incredible. You're going to play a little bit more of that. Go ahead.
All right. You just tell me when I need to stop, all right?
about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean? As we've heard.
Hey, Cedric, I just want to interject really quick. I know you're probably going to speak to this, but he talks about you have to be 10 times better if you're black just to succeed.
I know where you're going.
Are you going to get affirmative action there?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. It's all pandering. I listened to this whole speech, believe it or not. I did put it on 1.5 times speed so that it would seem like he was speaking in normal cadence. And some of the speech was okay. I could see his writers were very good, but then he had to start pandering. So we'll go, and Cedric will tell me when to stop.
The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean? As we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure.
Okay, stop. I wonder if they held up applause cards, like, time to applaud. Applaud. And again, this is one of the democracy's big buzzwords. Democracy. Our democracy is under attack. Our democracy is in danger. Ever since January 6th, the insurrection, there's been an attack on our democracy. And I'm talking to all the black men who are listening. Brian, sit this one out. All us black men are being hit harder than anybody else in the world, including my Jewish brother over there. No one understands this. So he says, what is democracy if black men are being killed in the streets? The stats have shown over and over again. If you go to me and Brian's earlier videos when we first started this in 2020,
just go to the FBI stats.
the FBI, go to the FBI stats. It shows that black men are not being murdered in a large number. And actually, if they are, they're being killed by, guess who? Other black men. They're not being gunned down in the streets by police officers. And me and Brian used to play Sesame Street back in 2020. Our big buzzword of the day was always comply. If a cop pulls you over, be nice, comply, and they don't let you go. I can attest to that. It irritates Brian like none other. I have gotten out of more tickets than I deserve, just because I'm not an idiot.
Yeah, he gets out of more tickets than I ever had.
What is democracy if a trail of broken promises will still leave black communities behind? And that's the thing about the left. They talk in such nebulous terms. What are these broken promises that have been broken? I don't understand. We have affirmative action, which is racially motivated. So my children and myself, we went to college on diversity scholarships because we're a different color. We get in jobs because you got to have the DEI going on, and you have to have X amount of black people and brown people and gay people inside your company. Isn't that racist toward white people? You can speak on that if you want to, Brian.
Well, we deserve it, Cedric. We deserve it.
Exactly. He said, what is democracy if you have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot? That is a fallacy that has been put out there for as long as I can remember. Yeah, so I guess LeBron James and Steph Curry, and they have to be 10 times better than the average white guy to have a shot at the NBA. Oh, Cedric, now you're talking about sports. That's different. Well, that's the pedestal that we put a lot of black men on. Brian and I talked about this. If you look at the Haitian men who come over from those states, they put more importance on education and intelligence and things like that. They put the same amount of emphasis on that we put on basketball, baseball, and football. And if we would change our thinking, we could have some of our black men rise up to that as well. But that's what they're expected to do. And lastly says, but most of all, what does it mean, as we learned before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure? We are a PG show. I can't say what I want to say, but that is a bunch of bull.
Shit.
This country, well, this country, I have never felt more loved. And I've never lived anyplace else, but I've never had to cower in fear of my life or fear not to be accepted than in this country. And we've said this before, and I say it again. That is right now, today, whatever day you are watching this video, that there are literally thousands, 10, 12, 13,000 men, mainly men, who are cowering, who are trying to get over to this country. If we were so racist, if this country hates black and brown people so much, then why do people continue to come over? And that's a question I have yet to get an answer to.
So my takeaway from this is their commencement. So these are a bunch of kids that are ready to graduate and go to the world. And instead of telling them, hey, you can do it, he's constantly saying that the world is against you. The country doesn't love you. You have to work 10 times harder. It's like, where's the motivation for these kids to actually go out and try to make it in the world then? This commencement where he's speaking at is just pretty much telling them, you know what, unless you elect me, you're going to just have a terrible life and you might as well give up. I mean, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
but we know it's all just pandering. He didn't write it. He's reading it. Somebody said, this is going to help you get the black vote. So it's belittling, and it's a shame.
And I don't know where we got this video from, Brian. I don't know where we got it from, but what you don't see in this video, if you watch another video, you see a lot of graduates who have their back turned to him.
I did see that.
And they're like, we've listened to this enough. We're done.
Yeah,
you've said this crap. We're done listening to it.
I wish they would have interviewed some of those kids that had their backs turned. What I is curious about, Cedric, if you look there, this is an HBCU, and there's just a white guy sitting back there on the faculty.
He didn't smile once. He's the custodian.
What's the flag? Is that for the school or?
I don't know. It's not a very big college. I think it's like 2,200 students, if I remember correctly. But I know it's
only men, right?
All men. Yeah, all men. That would be lonely.
Cedric would have never lasted in all men.
Oh, jeez.
You want me to go to 13?
Let's go to 13.
All right, here. We'll see.
Well, that's my commitment to you, to show you democracy is still in the way. If black men are being killed in the street, we bear witness. For me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, root out systemic racism. I stood up for George.
Wait. So I'll back up a little. Okay, Cedric just mentioned this.
White supremacy.
He talks about black
racism.
men. Yeah, black men getting killed, and then he brings up white supremacy. When Cedric just said the black men that are getting killed in this country are getting killed in cities like Chicago by other black men. They're not getting killed by the boogeyman out there that's everybody on the Democratic side seems to think is taking over.
Incredible. Systemic racism, I touched on that a little bit. There is systemic racism, but it's being perpetrated against other races, while people who are brown and black men are getting not equal opportunity, but special opportunity.
Yeah, Asians are, at least when we're talking about colleges, Asians are actually targeted not getting in, even though their merit is better.
Me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, to root out systemic racism. I stood up for George Floyd's family to help create a country. We don't need to have that talk with your son or grandson as they get pulled over.
Wait, okay,
instead of a trail of broken promises.
I gotta address this because you see this in Hollywood all the time. They always emphasize if there's black characters that the black father has to have the talk with his son.
The talk,
right?
Yes.
It's funny. It's just the talk would be, hey, son, whether you're white, black, brown, Asian, whatever, if you get pulled over by a police officer, be respectful, keep your hands up, don't act threatening. I mean, that should be across races. But I watched this new movie with Jeff Daniels. It was on Netflix. And there was a scene on it, and it was done by David E. Kelly, who I like. He does a lot of the law type stuff. He did Boston Legal, he did Ally McBeal, all that stuff. But there was a black character in there, and his car was getting towed. So he ran out, and a truck behind him had pushed his car into the red. So instead of just saying, hey, this guy pushed me in there, I'll take care of it later, he decides to jump in his car and say, you can't tow it, I'm in my car. And then the police showed up, and of course he wouldn't get out of the car. So then the policeman acted a little rough, okay? So of course it's Hollywood, so they're going to make the police look bad. And then the police officer kind of hit him because he was resisting arrest. And then he turned around and he hit the cop in the face, and then he ended up getting arrested, obviously. So my thought, Cedric, was if that happened to me, I would have never thought about jumping in the car and trying to keep them from towing it. In my mind, I'm like, this is bullshit, but I'll wait till it happens and then I'll try to fight it. But I'm not going to sit there and try to fight with a police officer. And that's what Hollywood does, because they wanted to set up this whole narrative that the police officer treated him unfairly. But who else is going to do that? Why does Hollywood portray it like this?
It sells. It makes more money than using common sense and logic and interpersonal skills. That they got to go to the nth level. What's the movie we talked about way back when? We're going to dial it up to what? Dial it up to 11?
Dial up to 11, Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
All right. Is there another one, 17?
Last one, I think I had 1655, or this will be the last one.
Okay, 1655.
Holding people hostage. I was there 9 days after. Set pictures of tying a mother and a daughter in a rope, pouring kerosene on them, burning them, and watching as they died. Innocent Palestinians caught in the middle of all this.
Oh, I see why you brought this up.
Men, women, and children killed.
Okay. So he just mentioned that Hamas came and burned people alive, raped them until they died, and then he has to pander to his base, that AOC base and Rashida Tlaib, and say, with that, innocent Palestinians. Guess who abuses the Palestinians? It's not the Israelis. The Israelis are trying to get in to get Hamas. But Hamas uses them as shields. Go watch, Cedric. Jordan Peterson did a great interview with the son of one of the Hamas leaders. Go watch that. Please go watch that. If you have any doubt about this whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, please just go watch that. Look up Jordan Peterson.
Recently uploaded?
Yeah, it's there. You got to go watch it, because this guy explains how these kids in Gaza are just brainwashed just to hate Jews. They're brought up to hate. So
they died. Innocent Palestinians caught in the middle of all this. Men, women, and children killed or displaced in desperate need of water, food, and medicine. It's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's why I've called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting.
Immediate ceasefire. Cedric, what did you say before? There would be an immediate ceasefire if Hamas just laid down their arms. That'd be it.
Lay down
It'd be a ceasefire. Yeah. But if Israel laid down their arms, Iranian proxies would start shooting missiles over again. We've seen it over and over.
They would be obliterated. A few seconds before that, Brian, before you got to that whole thing, President Biden said something that I want to touch on real quick. He said, I want to say this very clearly. I support peaceful, nonviolent protests. Does anybody watching this right now remember the summer of 2020? BLM, Antifa? Your voices should be heard, and I promise you I hear them. I determined to make my administration look like America. I have more African Americans in high places, including on the court, than any president in American history. And he gets applause for that.
Yeah.
That goes back to DEI. And here I am saying this as a black man, not as a sellout, not as an Uncle Tom, as a coon. I want the best person, regardless of race, regardless of gender, in positions. Would I love to see more black people in these places? Absolutely, if they warrant it, if it bears merit. But to just simply put a black person in a position just to say, hey, we have a black person in that position, that's insulting.
Vice President Kamala Harris?
She's a perfect example. You know, she She,
He mentioned there later how she's such a smart person too. I almost didn't laugh.
She literally sucked her way to the top. It's incredible. But it's like, Brian, I mentioned this before in our early years of doing this, is that if you're going to have someone perform heart surgery on you, would you just want the best qualified person to do it? Or as a black person, do they roll me in and say, you know what, I don't want anyone to operate on me unless it's a black person? How stupid is that? And that's exactly what he's saying. He's trying to pop his collar a little bit and say, I'm the president that has the most black people employed. And that's great. That's awesome if they qualify. I'm not saying they don't. If they qualify, God be with them. That's great. That's awesome. I have a feeling they don't, and just put them in there to prove a point.
Oh, well, okay. So we've gone on for quite a long time. So I know all of you who watch our reaction channels are probably like, what are these guys doing? But we have to bring this up. We've got a big election coming up. And those of you
I think
on
my
the
Zoom
fence...
canceled, Brian.
What?
I think my Zoom stopped.
No, it didn't, because I wouldn't be hearing you if your Zoom was off.
Okay. All right.
I'm looking at you right now.
All right. Okay.
All right, but we better wrap it up because our Zoom will run out because we are using the free one.
All right,
if you want to help us out to give us a paid Zoom, go ahead and donate. You can donate to Cash App or Venmo or Cash App.
All right. Good. Congratulations to all you parents out there. I know we're getting to the summer and graduation's coming up. Do not have this man speak at your child's commencement address. Don't do it. But make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and continue sharing our channel with everyone you know from California to Tennessee and all around the world. Until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. See you later.